Hey everybody, John Shell here with Cruise Addicts, and I want to thank you for being here today this Sunday afternoon and spending some time with us. I'm going to be having Michael Consoli joining us. If you don't know who Michael Consoli is, he's a Cruise Planners franchise owner, and he actually has been the top grossing producer for Viking cruises. He sells more Viking cruises for the last 10 years than anyone else in the world. Very impressive. He's also done this with many other brands, Royal Caribbean, and so many other brands. So he can answer any of your cruise questions about not just Viking, but those as well. So we love to hear those. But first, we want you to sit there and check in, say hello. We love Cruise Addicts from all around the world, all different brands. But we're going to talk a little bit about Viking today, but we're also going to talk about the benefits of booking early. You know, you're told about this, it's good to book early because there's advantages, but Michael's going to tell you from the inside track that only a seasoned travel agent like himself can tell you those little nuggets of information that he can share with us. So, like I said, Michael's been selling Viking for 10 years or more than 10 years, but he's been the largest producer for Viking. I'm going to stop talking because I can't. Somebody get him in here. Thanks, Michael.
Hey, John, how are you?
Yeah, my tongue is getting tied today this Sunday afternoon. But how's everything going where you are?
Very good, very good.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful day today, so.
Yeah, it's beautiful outside. You see the sun shining in the background where I'm at, so it's just a beautiful day here on board.
You're in the hide on the expedition.
Yes. But once again, everybody, please check in. We want to say hello. Please say hello. Let us know what your cruise is coming up. Give us a like, thumbs up, all those wonderful things. And please subscribe. We'd love to have your subscription so you get notifications when we're doing this again. We've got some plans for 2025 coming up here, so we'd love to have you on board. So I will slow down here, and we're going to talk about the early booking benefits to cruising, Michael, and booking those cruises early. We hear about that all the time. I know, everybody shares tips nowadays. What do you think what do you tell your clients the benefits are booking early?
I mean, well, typically there's going to be an additional savings the earlier you book. So especially when we're talking about Viking, if you look at their website for pricing, you'll see that there's a price that's crossed out, and then the price under that is the price that they're offering that cruise at today. Those prices are the early booking savings. So when people call and they say, "Oh, we want to do this itinerary, we want to use promo code EBD," which is their early booking savings. That's what you see on the website, and so there's usually a savings between $3,000 and $2,000, just depending on how far out you are from the cruise and when the cruise is. So that is the biggest benefit. The earlier you book, the better. And then, I think that people have realized that Viking sells very far in advance, and they're masters at marketing their cruises and selling them. So, when we do see specials, there's very limited availability. If there's a promo that we see that comes later, it's usually on a standard cabin or with a guarantee where there is no cabin assignment. And, some of that is, having a say as to where you are on the ship is very valuable to a lot of people. So that might not be an option for some people. So, but the biggest benefit is of booking early is getting the best price. Also having the best selection of cabins and being able to choose what you want. I can't tell you how many times a day guests call and they're like, "Oh, I want a PS1 or a PV1," and they're all sold out. And it's because we're so close to the sailing date. And with Viking, their selling cycle is so early that we could be a year or more in advance and those categories are sold out. So it really is a matter of making sure you book early enough to get what you want, the location of the cabin, the category that you're looking for. Usually the air pricing that Viking offers is lower earlier. So there's a lot of reasons to book early and taking advantage of some of the savings that may not be available later.
So I'm going to recap it here because I'm trying to keep up with this because it's kind of a moving target when you're talking about booking these cruises because so much sells fast, right? No matter when they're released.
Yeah, they do. They sell fast. There are several itineraries that sell years in advance.
So I'm just going to go back and just kind of recap what I just heard you say. The advantages of booking earlier, obviously, choice of cabin. If you want a special cabin category, if you have something in mind, like a penthouse suite, like you said, and different really nice the Explorer suites and the owner suites, obviously booking early helps. And also if they want the included airfare, because I imagine the promotional airfare rates or included airfare probably goes away sometime, right?
Yeah, exactly. It does.
So my next question, with those two things said, when is early enough? Like give me a timeline. If I'm a new client of yours, when should you really try to book as early as possible? Is it 1 year, 2 years? I mean, how many months ahead of time are we talking about?
It really depends on the itinerary, but in truth, I mean, there's really no caveat to booking early and taking advantage of the pricing that's available early to get those locations on the cabins, the things that you want, because you can always cancel and rebook it if there's something else that comes along that's going to save you some money. So many people, they always ask me, should I wait till the last minute? Well, in previous years, that would be okay. But like even with other lines, we see the sell-through for 25 and 26 to be so high that it's just, it's people are surprised. Like I have clients that are looking at Alaska for next year on ships that are 24, 25, 3,000 people, and the balconies are all sold out. And
Wow.
so, people have booked. We had this pent-up demand, and it seems to have not gone away, which is great for us and the cruise lines and our business. But the demand just seems to have snowballed and a lot of itineraries. And with Viking, we see the Douro sell very quickly early. Usually Egypt we see selling very quickly early. The British Isles Explorer, Mediterranean Odyssey, Viking Homelands, those itineraries all tend to sell very quickly early. And that's because they're just really, really popular. And when there are slow selling itineraries, it's usually in the off season or shoulder season. The winter sailings, in the Med, things like that tend to sell slower. The height of summer tends to sell slower. But other than that, I mean, if you're looking for, the Rhine Getaway or Grand European in May or September, you're gonna want to book that early.
And like I said, I'm kind of being a nerd here, but what's early enough for you? What do you really suggest? 12 months or greater?
Oh, I suggest as early as they possibly can plan. So I would say, 1.5 to 2 years ahead of time. And then, we help them make sure that they're getting the best value when they book. And we also keep an eye on, if pricing were to get, to improve, we let them know that there are opportunities to save.
So when you say best value, like I said, I'm kind of going to probe here a little bit, but when you say I'm going to offer my client a best value, what does that mean to you? What is that? What's behind that?
Yeah. Well, you and I talk about this a lot. Value is different to everyone, right? So our is to determine what guests see as valuable to them. And then we work from there. Of course, we want everybody to get the best price on what they're planning, but value is subjective. It's subjective to, what people want to include, want to do on their own, want to have their hand held. It all just depends. So my job is to help them figure out what the best value is for them, because it's not a one size fits all proposition. It's always tailored to what that guest is looking for.
Right. I'm sure. And with your knowledge and background, because you do this so much, I know we talk regularly about insurance questions and how you help your guests handle that and maneuver. You have a proprietary product that you offer your guests, which has really been a godsend through COVID and everything else, right?
Yeah, I mean, we have a lot of avenues to pursue for insurance or add-ons or airfare that the guests can't get directly with the cruise line. And so that's one of the reasons why we recommend working with, a travel advisor, because we're going to be able to bring more options to the table than they can bring to the table. And we can give you the caveats of both. So that you're making an educated decision that's right for you. Again, seeing the value the way the guest sees the value, not necessarily the way we see it.
And then we've also talked about, I'm just kind of putting this out there because just things that come up regularly, especially on the group, about airfare, the concerns where people are talking about, they're on the telephone and do I call? And when they're dealing directly with different cruise lines and even with Viking, you handle that for your guests. They don't have to bother with that, right?
Yeah, and this goes back to booking early too, right? So the air schedules that are available under Viking's contracted rate become available about 10 months prior, the sweet spot really around 9 months prior. And we help them get, the best available schedule. If you're booking 4 months out, let's say you can book the sailing you want to book 4 months out, then, 80%, 90% of the ship already has their air. Those air contracts are already, pretty exhausted by the time we're looking at air that close to the sailing date. So it's another benefit to making sure you book early, is to have the opportunity to have a say as to how the air is routed and what airline it's on, and having more options under the contracted rate that Viking offers, instead of being so limited when you're much closer to the sailing date.
And I'm sure you have some guests, they want to do Delta One, or they want business class, or whatever special bookings, as far as their air, because it is a long flight to these destinations. So
Yeah.
you help your guests with that as well, right?
Yeah, premium economy and business class, we help with all of that.
That's great. So I'm going to put Michael's contact information down below. If you're enjoying how he's answering my questions and going over some of these complex things, his information is down there. You can visit his website at planmycruise.com, and you can email him at michael@planmycruise.com 24 hours a day. And of course, his phone number is right there, 1-800-913-7245. And I've always impressed when we do these, how just fluid information just rolls off, and it's just so unintimidating. So please ask your question below. I see we have some comments rolling in. We're going to get to those in a second once we go over some of this stuff. But thank you all for being here. We really appreciate it. Thank you for those likes, heart, thumbs up. It makes me feel special.
And John, can I just interrupt for a second? And
Sure.
just, there are a few people that are on here that I just have to say hello to, which are Stuart Lytle. And thanks for joining us, Stuart. Yvonne McMillan, who's an amazing client as well. Thank you for being here, Yvonne. She's got a cruise coming up right around the corner. Gail Zwart, one of my clients from the West Coast. So good to see you here. Thanks for listening. Larry, we love that you're here too. We're going to answer your questions. And we really appreciate you all being here so that we can, do these live streams. One of our favorite things is to answer your questions. So thanks for being here.
Yeah, it's always fun, and it makes this show so much more interesting than talking about insurance. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah.
But no, it's great. We really appreciate you taking the time. Wow. So, I know you wanted to talk about too, that there's some itineraries from Viking being offered in 2027 that people might not know about. So we wanted to touch on that as well.
Yeah, we've already seen them, issue itineraries or open sailings for Egypt in 2027. There are several itineraries that are open, Magnificent Mekong, and I think people have been asking about Ocean and when those are going to open. So we hope to see those open in the next few months. Usually we see them open in November, but we've not yet seen them. So currently for 2027, we have Magnificent Mekong and Pharaohs and Pyramids open for 2027 for sale. And that just gives you an idea of how far in advance these sailings sell. So we definitely encourage people to take advantage of booking early. And we expect to see 2027 Ocean opening, soon. So
the good thing is Vikings continued building new ships and launching them really quickly. They don't really mess around, with their growth. So it just gives more and more capacity, some different itineraries.
Yeah, and I think last week or the week before we talked about holiday markets cruises, and those, like for 2026, I was just pulling something aside for a family who wanted to travel on the Rhine, and some of those sailings for 2026 are already well sold. So that's a really good example of an itinerary that you have to book early if you want something above a standard cabin. And going back to what we started talking about with booking early, the Ocean product, for instance, we talk about this a lot, about how the excursions open to you based on the category you booked. So first the owner suite, then the explorer suites open for excursions. Then a week to 10 days after that, the penthouse junior suites open, then the penthouse verandas, then the deluxe verandas, and then veranda V1 and V2. So if you're in those lower category cabins, you're getting access to those excursions last. And, and while everybody is entitled to the included excursion, what time you get that excursion, whether it's at 8 o'clock in the morning or at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, is going to determine what else you get to do for that day, or if you get to take advantage of an optional excursion. So, and the optional excursions are also on that same schedule. So it is really important to book early to get the category that you want. And some itineraries, it's more important than others to have the higher categories so that you can get the excursions you want. And so, that is one of the biggest benefits too. Also, the categories have access to specialty dining in the same way. The higher the category, the earlier they open for specialty dining, the more specialty dining restaurant reservations you get, pre-reservations you get on board the ship. So that is another reason why booking early is important.
And you say this, and it's kind of flat, when you say it, not taking away from the information, but when you watch the Viking Cruises group that we have, people get really serious about this when they're trying to book when it becomes time to book those excursions and book those specialty dinings. They really those things matter, right?
It does. It's part of the experience. It's what they're paying for. They're paying for the included excursions. They're paying for the included reservations at the specialty restaurants. And we want to make sure that they're getting to take advantage of all of those things. And so, again, this goes back to what we talk about with working with an experienced travel advisor. We can help them navigate that regardless of the category that they're in, what the best way to attack those excursions are in order to get what you want. And that is what we do every day with our guests, is give them advice on the best ways to secure what they're looking for. And that's a very important step. And, on the ocean product, that's how it's handled. On the river product, it's handled completely differently. So the advantages to booking early on the river product, when you have a ship that only has 20 cabins in one category, that is another, goes back. There are other reasons or different reasons on the river product for booking early. And one of them would be like if you're looking for a veranda cabin or French balcony cabins, those cabins sell first. The veranda suites, there's only 8 or 10 on each ship. And so if you're looking for that, it really is, again, tailoring the guest to the time frame and the guest to the right product and when they want to go and what category they need. But the river cruise ships are, they range from 120 to 190 guests. Getting what you want, booking the river cruises early is also important too. And I just want to remind people that, there's no caveat to booking early. The benefits outweigh any negatives. The benefit of getting what you want as early as you want, being able to plan a year in advance for your excursions, for the river cruises, those are all things that are benefits to booking early. And there really are not a lot of caveats to doing so.
And from my experience, when you book early and you lock in your cabin, you lock in the price, many of the promotions that might come a year later, or even as we get closer to sailing, it could sound like the best thing since sliced bread, right? But it still never touches that low price you got a year out, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Or more. Okay. That's what I thought, because I know it's been that way with other lines. I just want to see if it was Viking as well. Very interesting. So is there any tips is there something that's happened recently? Well, I'll back up to that second, but I guess I'll finish talking today about this. But is there any tips or something that's happened in your business as far as insurance or airfare or something that you want to offer a tip to say, I really need to tell my clients this?
Yeah, look, I think we're seeing airfare prices through the roof for 25 and, especially in the premium products like premium economy and business class, that kind of thing. We're seeing rates that are very, very high. And I think taking advantage of the specials that the cruise lines have, Viking specifically has, with savings on the air, it is something that, is an opportunity to save money. If you can be flexible with your air schedule and, and being able to choose from what Viking has and their contracted rate, then you have the opportunity to save some money. Just yesterday, I was pricing air directly with an airline for a guest, and it was a business class ticket was $7,500, and Viking was offering it for $47.98. So, there are opportunities really to save money by doing the air through the cruise line. I think that people don't realize that. There are limitations, but the limitations, again, may outweigh for that guest the pricing savings that they're getting going through the cruise line. And then, we talk about travel insurance all the time. It's something that we really feel is a very important component, being able to protect the investment that our guests are making in their trip. Insurance is always, one of those conversations that we have with the guests that they always think we just want to sell them something else, which any guest that works with us knows that's not our MO at all. We really want to make sure that we protect our clients' investment, that they feel comfortable that their investment is protected if something were to happen. Insurance is really for those things that are not foreseeable. I have clients that say, "Oh no, I'm definitely going on this trip. It doesn't, come hell or high water, I'm going. It doesn't matter." And the truth is that's not always the case. If somebody breaks a leg, or God forbid somebody gets sick, or somebody in your family passes away, you're not going to be able to go on that trip, and you would easily lose $8, $10, $15, $20,000 a person simply because it wasn't properly insured. We just feel really strongly that our guests have that protection, and we help lead them through that process to make sure they're protecting the product, the trip with the right product for them.
Right. And like you said, that's a good value as well for everyone.
Right. Yeah, it's definitely a good value for the guests because it's not only that, it's not just protecting cancellation, it's protecting, if they were to get sick on the trip, if they had to come home because somebody at home was sick or ill, if they lost their luggage, if they lost their passport, if they missed a connection, flight was canceled, insurance is going to help with all of that. And I could tell you hundreds of stories why, how our clients utilized insurance to save a trip or to get all of their money back when they had to cancel a trip.
It's interesting you bring this up now because I think we could probably both agree that we've never seen the connectivity for cruise travelers. People have a studio in their hand, with video and phone, photos and live connectivity 24/7. And a ship last night had turned around and a guest had backed up and went down a flight of stairs of some point. And I guess he's going to be okay, but the ship had to turn around and come back into port. And everybody keeps track of it with the AIS tracking, the ship trackers and everything. But you have almost real-time reporting through groups that are specialized for these, sometimes down to the ship, right? And it just becomes, what my point to this is, it becomes more and more real how things are happening, life is happening. These ships, some of them hold a city's population, and things are bound to happen. Unfortunately, life happens, right?
Yeah, and we want to be able to make sure that we can help them get home or get made whole in any situation where that happens. So it is an important component.
Yeah, wonderful. So that is great. I tell you what, I do have more people checking in. If you haven't already done so, if you haven't asked your question, checked in, let us know what your upcoming cruise is. I'm going to Paris. Just wanted to tell you all that. So I'm pretty excited about that coming up this week. So keep out for some updates here. But I know we've got a lot of other people checking in here. Let's see. The Cruise Net's checked in from YouTube. Great to see you guys. And we've got Tammy's checking in from Facebook. She's saying hi. And she really enjoys Viking and the broadcast. Thank you so much. And Stuart, I know you had shouted out to him. Good to see you, Stuart. And we also have Cheryl from Facebook. Great to see you, Cheryl. And let's see. And 13 days, Yvonne is going on a cruise in 13 days. And I love to hear where you're going, Yvonne. And let's see. And Kathy West, great to see you again, Kathy. She says, I always book early. It's always the cheapest price. I know. I tell you what, once upon a time, I sold cruises, and I booked a coworker. She booked like a year out through a different brand, and I monitored the rates all through the year, and I got more promotional things, and I checked it every single time. And you would think they were selling, you would think they were giving it away if the promotions got so. And the marketing is amazing, right? You think it's just the best sale ever, and it never touched that low initial rate. So I learned then, because I checked it, and it was so enticing, and I felt good from the client, who was a dear friend of mine, still is, that she got to go on her first cruise and absolutely loved it and got a great deal. She got the cabin she wanted. She got a wonderful price that no one could touch. And we know how the people are when you're sitting at the table sometimes. So what did you pay, right? Sometimes, I don't know if that happens as much nowadays, but way back when, people used to get kind of like probe you for how much you paid, right?
It happens for sure. before we got on the live stream, had an email from a client who sat next to somebody that on a future cruise, and her price was way better than the person next to her. So people definitely talk about
it. Yeah. They used to shake it down, when you had a large table.
Yeah.
Let's see. So we got more people checking in. Back up here. Oh, we got a lot. Thank you for all the comments. Yeah. So Kathy has a 2026 river cruise booked. I don't know if I mentioned that. And Gail is saying hello to you, Michael.
Hi, Gail, again. Hi. Thanks for being here.
Oh, that's it. I had to read a second. Put this here. Let's see. Yeah, so Larry is checking in from YouTube. He says, we were on a cruise in September, and we're notified our British Airlines return flight was canceled, and Viking rebooked us with short connections. I simply emailed Michael, and it was fixed fast.
Yeah, thanks, Larry. Thanks for the shout out. I'm happy to do it. We're happy to make sure you're taken care of always. So thank you so much.
And Lee's checking in from Facebook, Michael, and he says, do you know when the 2027 River and Ocean is going to be released? I see Nile in Vietnam, but
he's done Nile, and he's not.
Okay.
Well, we expect them. Usually, it's around November. I think it may just be a little bit later, November, December. I think that they're just trying to work out the last part of 2026 before they offer 27. So I know somebody else asked about Australia, New Zealand in 2020, late 2026. I think they're going to continue that itinerary. I just don't think that they have opened those itineraries. Typically, they don't open the whole year for ocean. They kind of open like the first half, and then the next wave they open the last half and the next half of the next year. So we could see more itineraries added later for sure.
And thank you. And then Cruise Scene is checking in. Hello back to you guys. Thanks for checking in from YouTube. And we've got Cheryl. And she goes, you suggest 12 to 18 months booking ahead of time. Other than booking on an ocean cruise or multiple bookings, how do you avoid paying right away? Great question.
Yeah, it's a great question. You usually don't have to pay right away. You are going to pay a year to 18 months in advance. As you said, typically we call it the promotional final payment date. So currently for 2027, I think 2026, I think it's May 30th of 2025. For this year, for 2025, the promotional final payment date is December 30th of this year. So you are going to pay a year or more in advance. But again, it is the best way to do it is to have multiple bookings to avoid that. So you could have a 6-month final payment date. And we do encourage our clients to do that simply because it does allow us to push the final payment date back. But yes, you are correct. There is not a way to, other than that, there's not a way to avoid paying a year to 18 months in advance. But again, it is something that Viking feels strongly about their final payment structure, that guests are committed to what they're signing up for, and that they're not just putting a deposit down and waiting until 4 months prior to cancel. It's a model that works for them. I know it's very different than other cruise lines, but it is. They are the only cruise line that offers many things, including a 3.3% discount for paying by electronic check. So they do have a unique payment structure. I will say that.
And do they still have the promotional down payment?
Yep, they're still promoting the $25 per person down payment to hold your space. So it's definitely a good thing.
Right. So Tammy is checking in from Facebook, Michael, and she goes, do you know why Australia, New Zealand in 2026 only has one sailing of Viking? They're stopping that. Are they stopping that itinerary?
Yeah, they're definitely not stopping the itinerary. It is a really popular itinerary. Just don't think they fleshed out the rest of 2026 for that particular itinerary. So I think it has more than one date in 2026, though. I think there are. It's typically an itinerary that really only runs through like the first week of March. So I think they just have the first part of 2026 out. It looks like they have 5 dates in January and February. Nothing for March. They may be, moving that ship elsewhere from Australia. That ship, goes. Usually, those ships that are there go around Asia, do Bali, Bangkok, and beyond, or something like that. So there are several other itineraries they will deploy there and then bring the ship back at the end of the year for the Australia-New Zealand season, which is usually October, November, December, running through February or March.
Great, thank you. And Sharon I know you never get asked this, Michael. What do you think of Viking Air Plus?
Yeah, I think it's a really, really important component to have if you're somebody that is concerned about what your schedule is going to be. We typically recommend all of our guests take the Air Plus. It allows us to have a say as to how the flights are routed as early as 10 months prior to departure, and gives the client a say within Viking's contracted rates on how they fly and how they on the itinerary that they're going on. So we highly recommend it. Otherwise, you're just going to be assigned a schedule 5 months prior, and you're stuck with that schedule. Without Air Plus, you really have no say in the flight itinerary.
Well, thank you for answering that. And Cheryl's checking in from Facebook. She goes, we're interested in into the Midnight Sun itinerary. She goes, there's only June and July available for 2025 and nothing in 2026. Is this going away?
I don't believe the itinerary is going away at all. It's actually a very popular itinerary. Again, I just think they have not, deployed the ships that are going to be in that area in the summer of 26. So there's no indication to me that it's going away. I just think that we're awaiting itineraries to open for the end of 26 and the beginning of 27.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that. And Lynn wants to say hello. Hi, Michael, Mary, and Corey.
Hey, Lynn, thanks for being here.
And Joseph's checking in from YouTube. And he says, looking forward to my first ever river cruise. Thank you, Michael. Do either of you have experience with eSIMs?
Yeah, so I get a lot of questions about this. And typically, the cell phone carrier will have the best options for you to do calling overseas. The eSIM, you can buy an eSIM that will work overseas. We do recommend, if you have, I know there are some limited carriers that limit what you can do overseas, and an eSIM is necessary. But most of the major carriers will let you use your phone like you use it at home for a fee of $10 to $15 a day. And I have found that to be the best way to utilize my phone. I have AT&T and I know it works with Verizon and T-Mobile. You can use the phone in other countries just as you use it at home for a very small fee. And I would explore that unless you're with a discount carrier who doesn't offer that. Then I think you would have to use an eSIM, to buy service through another company.
Yeah, I use T-Mobile, and that's been pretty generous throughout Europe. Of course, on board with Viking, the internet's included. But I did just get some emails recently from a company that wants to work with my brand, and I was kind of getting educated with that eSIMs, because I was like, eSIM what, and I really had a hard time understanding. I'm like, so this is some of the, for example, different brands where the internet packages are very, very expensive. I guess they actually work on board with certain brands. And so I think it is potentially an option. I was probing pretty hard in my back and forth with the representative, but it seems like a lot of cruisers are using it. And it seemed to be like a daily rate or like a package. It didn't seem like it was super high volume, but there was definitely a lot there. So the convenience would be great, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, so definitely. So yes, people are using it. So I guess that's my short answer. Modern technology is changing. Before long, we're going to have Starlink is going to be working with directly with your phone. You won't need to have any special anything. You'll have internet right on your phone in some places or all around the world. So things are changing. Let's see. So we got. So Jane has got a question here. She goes, but when you buy in advance, so for insurance, you have to pay in full 14 days after buying. Cruise makes you question the $25 deposit per person, but full payment of insurance. And I imagine that's my first rebuttal that might be is that's probably not all policies, right, Michael?
Yeah, so she's referring specifically to certain policies, the majority of which she's correct. In order to have pre-existing condition coverage, you would need to purchase that policy within 14 days of deposit. She may also be referring to Viking's policy, which has the same requirement. In order to have coverage for pre-existing conditions, it has to be purchased within 14 days of deposit. However, our policy we offer actually offers pre-existing condition coverage as long as it's paid at or before final payment. So yeah, there are a lot of things that we can offer that Viking can't offer. The flexibility of an insurance policy that you have to purchase 18 or 12 months in advance of the trip is something that we offer. Our policy can be moved to a different trip. It can be reduced down. So there's a lot of flexibility there if you're taking the third-party policy that we offer. So it's a great question, Jane, and definitely a caveat to booking early. But again, even with the Viking policy, purchasing it early, it still would allow you still have the option of taking that policy and moving it to another Viking trip. So let's say you've booked the Rhine getaway 2 years in advance, and then you decide that you can't go on that trip and you need to move it. Well, if you move it with Viking to another trip and you're outside of 121 days of departure, you can still move that policy to a different trip. So while you would have to pay for it, again, this is Viking's policy through TripMate, within 14 days of deposit. There is some flexibility there, but for the majority of our guests, we recommend our third-party policy, which gives them much more flexibility when it comes to insurance, and they don't have to pay for it until final payment. And still do have the pre-existing condition coverage.
Wonderful. I like that. Now, you've touched on this before because when you've explained why it's good to work with a travel agent like yourself, because you have the flexibility where you said Viking is locked into offering just a certain set of products and options to their guests directly, but you have a whole array of different things that you know and trust, right?
Yeah. I mean, the nice thing is that, again, it goes to finding what's the best value for the guest. Everybody's value is different. I could tell you from the clients that we have that are on this chat today, what they value, what one may value over another. And so everybody's different as to how they see value in travel and the money that they're spending for that travel. So it's really a matter of helping them find the right fit. And the beauty of working with an experienced travel advisor is that we're going to be able to compare and contrast not just the Viking product, but also other products that might compete with it or might be a better fit for this guest. I was reading one of the discussions about this very live stream, an invitation to this very live stream, and there was some conversation on Facebook about that they want to take their kids on a trip. Well, that is something that we can help them find the right product for, because Viking obviously doesn't allow children under the age of 18. So, everybody's different in what they're looking for, and we help them find the right fit. And that means, looking at other things. That's what we do. We do not pigeonhole our guests into one product. If we're talking to a guest and they're like, we need X, Y, and Z, we're not going to just sell them the Viking product. We're going to sell them the right product for that particular situation. And I think that is something that our clients have grown to know and trust about us, that we're going to lead them down the right path. Again, many of these clients that you see that we've said hello to and things like that, they have booked multiple trips with us. For instance, Lynn Armfield, she's probably, I don't want to say my oldest client because she's definitely not my oldest, but she's definitely the guest who has been a guest that has been with me since I started in this business. And it's loyalty. We build loyalty by making sure we take care of our guests and we do the right thing for them and making sure that they're not left somewhere or they feel like they've lost out on something. We never allow that to happen. And we always make sure that we get them the best value because we want to build the relationship with them and have them be a long-term customer. Yvonne's another guest that's just like, she's been with me for 4 or 5 years. She travels a lot with her family, and we make sure that we take good care of all of our clients so that they come back and continue to do business with us.
And Lynn had checked in. Thanks for checking in, Lynn, through Facebook. She goes, She's got Regent booked in December with Michael and Sun Princess in February. And she's been with Michael since 2004.
Yeah, so 20 years.
That's incredible. And thank you so much for checking in, and Len. We appreciate you being here.
And she's 9.
So, what I was thinking while you were explaining that was I love options. There's nothing more frustrating is when, like you said, every client is different, and you're having a conversation and you feel like you're pigeonholed, and all of a sudden you go to someone else, maybe get a second opinion, and they're going, oh, they didn't tell you about this, these options. Even if you might go with the original thing, at least you have choices, right?
Yeah. And you have to have choices. I mean, look, I will say this: the Viking client is very loyal. Those guests that go and enjoy it, they will continue to travel well on Viking, and it is something that we sell a lot of because it's consistently good. I would say that we are also top producers with other lines like Celebrity and Talc and Region 7 Seas for the very same reasons. It tends to be consistently good. I don't want to sell something to somebody just to sell it. We want to sell them the right product for them. We want them to have a great time and then come back and book something else with us and tell their friend when they're at the grocery store, you need to book with Michael. That's our goal. So that's how we've built the business. It's something I feel really strongly about. I just don't want to make a sale to make a sale. We want to find the right product, make sure they have a great experience and come back to us.
Awesome. And we've got another question for you, Michael. Yvonne's checking in from Facebook, and she goes, Michael, could you please explain the rules for using the Viking Air Plus?
Yeah, so the Air Plus is going to allow us to have a say as to how the flights are routed. It can be added anytime up to 60 days prior to departure. But as we recommend, you do it, when you make the reservation, because it has, to believe it or not, it used to be $50. Then it went to $100. Now it's at $150. Because they have staff that's all they do is work on schedules for guests that have Air Plus, and so the demand for Air Plus and being able to have a say as to how your flights are routed is really important to most people, and so in order to take advantage of that, they do have to pay this Air Plus fee. I do want to say that a lot of people confuse it with whether or not it's going to be specific seating on the plane or anything like that. It does not give you extra leg room. It does any of those things. It just gives you a say as to how the flights are routed in the class of service that you purchased. So if you purchased economy, it's going to give you a say as to how the flights are routed with an economy ticket. Same thing with premium economy and business. It is different than an air deviation. If you want to fly in early or change your arrival or departure airport, like if you're flying from Atlanta to Rome, but you'd rather fly Atlanta to Florence 3 days early, that's a deviation. There is a separate fee for that. The Air Plus just gives you a say as to how the flights are routed. An air deviation is going to allow you to come in earlier than what the services that Viking is offering you, or change your air city for arrival where you're going or where you're coming back from.
So the way I'm interpreting this is if you get an itinerary, a Viking itinerary or air itinerary, I'm sorry, that's got a bunch of connections. It's just a nightmare, which I've seen those. You actually, with the Viking Air Plus, you can call and they can give you some other options, right?
Right. And we actually handle the whole process for our guests. The guests are still able to call into the air department themselves and make those changes or, see about the available schedules. But I do all of the air for all of our guests, and I work on their behalf. So I'm the one sitting on the phone, on hold or getting the air fixed when there's a problem, just like somebody said earlier in the live stream, so that the guest doesn't have to do that. And we, luckily, I've been doing this for a long time, so I'm familiar with the air cities, the layovers, where you need to have what, that kind of thing. And so it's a real benefit to the guest. Again, the guests may have their own idea of what they want their air to be, and we work with them to make sure that it meets the standard that they need to have for the trip that they're going on. And then we will request it, and provided it prices under the contracted rate, many times we're able to get that for the guest.
Wonderful. And Kevin Gallagher's checking in from YouTube. He says he's going on the British Isles and Iceland Explorer cruise September 25th. He's really looking forward to this.
Yeah, it's a really nice itinerary. So it's something that many of our clients have done, that British Isles Explorer. Well, he's doing British Isle and Iceland Explorer, so it's a longer itinerary. And thanks for being here, Kevin. We're grateful to have the opportunity to have helped you with your cruise, and we know you're going to have a fantastic time.
And David's checking in from Facebook. He says he's headed to Australia the end of January, and we're looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's a great itinerary too, David. I know you're going to love it.
Yeah. And then we have Kevin's got a question. He goes, in your circumstances change for future booking, if we want to do another cruise in the next year, do you lose your deposit or does that get transferred? Great question.
Yeah, you can transfer the deposit to a booking as long as you've not to a different sailing, as long as you've not entered the penalty phase of that sailing. So with most sailings, that means you're outside of 120 days from departure. As long as you're outside of that time frame, you can move the deposit to another sailing.
Great. So that gives you a lot of flexibility where you can lock in your favorite one now, but if something changes, you're not within 100 days, you can just switch it over to something else.
Exactly.
Awesome. And Jerry is checking in from Facebook. She goes, good to see and hear you, Michael.
Hey, Jerry. Thanks for being here.
And Dan saying, are you going to have Amazon Ocean cruises for 2026 and 2027?
Yeah, I've not seen any information about this yet. I would assume that there would be. It's a double-edged sword, to be honest with you, because I think that itinerary is popular. It's a nice itinerary that goes down the Amazon. The challenge that Viking has had with that itinerary is the air and getting people to the start or the end of that particular trip. But I do anticipate that they will have it for 26 and 27. But the air has been a challenge for sure.
And Joanne's checking in from Facebook. She says she's looking at the October 27th Cairo to Cairo Nile Loop cruise. She goes, they want full payment on January 26th, 22 months before the cruise. Is that true?
Yeah, I don't think that's the case. Well, that wouldn't be 20. I guess, would it be 22 months? Yes. Now that I'm looking at it, it says 1 of 26. So yes, the final payment would be due January of 26, 22 months before the cruise. Sorry about that, Joanne.
Okay. Well, thank you for clarifying that. And wow, we've covered so much. We've got a few minutes left. If there's any other questions, if you'd like to check in, and thank you all for checking in. This makes this so much fun where we actually have the interactiveness. We really appreciate it. If you haven't already, gave us a thumbs up, we see someone's yelling. Everyone's going, wow. See, your answer was so great. We got a wow too, and a heart. Appreciate it. So really, really like all this. This interactivity makes it so fun, and it's great to see so many of your clients and hopefully some new clients check it in, and even fellow creators, the Cruise Nuts, really appreciate it.
So I think we have another question.
Okay. Yeah. We've got Kevin says, can you say anything about the Great Lakes cruises? And I know you've taken this, right?
John, have you ever asked me a question I couldn't say something about?
No, I tell you what, it makes my job very easy. I appreciate it.
Yeah, Kevin, this is a great question. Actually, I have to tell you, I've done the Great Lakes cruises 3 times on expedition ships, so I can speak to it very well. It's actually one of my favorite itineraries. These Great Lakes themselves, a very nice itinerary, but those experiences on board the expedition ships are just outstanding. John is using the Hyde as his background, which is a venue on board the expedition ship that is all the way forward on the very lowest deck. And these windows that you see overlook the waves that are hitting the expedition ships at the front. So it's the ships themselves are just really unbelievably cool. But the itinerary is very, very nice. My favorite of which I have to say is Toronto to New York. So it's not really the Great Lakes, but it goes down the St. Lawrence Seaway and does some Canada, New England. Really, really nice itinerary. But you can do that with some of the Great Lakes before as well. But I've done 2 on the Great Lakes, and then that one that I was just mentioning from it was Toronto to New York for sure. So, but those ships are 300 passengers, just beautiful ships with, submarines and kayaks and Swiss operations boats. And they spend the summer in the Great Lakes and the winter in Antarctica. and then do a longitudinal world cruise in between. So really, really nice itineraries. But I would, if you're looking to do the Great Lakes, there's really no better option, in my opinion.
Yeah, the ships are so special too. I mean, me and Michael talked about this before. All the Viking vessels are incredible, but it seems like they've taken to this a whole new level. The detail, even you can see the detail in the space behind me is just so fine. Every little from bow to stern, the ship is really, really well appointed with different, just wonderful. I can go on and on. Really, really good. Amazing food. Only 300 people on board. It's very intimate, like a river cruise, but you get all the amenities, most of the amenities of an ocean cruise, and a full expedition team with scientists on board. They launch a weather balloon. They do experiments that you can take part in. Freddy's is on board. Really, really great. So I can go on and on, but really, really nice. So, wow. But yeah, thank you, Kevin. Again, we really appreciate it. We've got lots of people watching. We've got about 9 minutes left. We'd love to have more questions, or please, if you haven't already checked in, please do so. And we'll try to think of some more things we can cover here. I know, you talked about different stories and things like that. We talked about cruise insurance, which I've always loved that you have that product where the guests actually have the option in case something does go wrong, their investment's covered. They don't have to worry about it. You've mentioned that countless times where something happens on the first or second day and there's a whole group of people and the family has to fly home because the matriarch of the family got hurt or something, and everything's covered. They get the airfare is covered going back. They get their investments covered. They get to rebook it for the future. Everything's good, right?
Yeah, I think it's a great investment and really important to have. I just want to step back and address one more question, or the question we had about final payment. I think it's important to mention that, it is a challenge with the final payment dates. It's one of the only pushbacks we really get about the Viking product is how early they want their final payments. The challenge is, or really the benefit is that there's not a lot, especially with Egypt, of cruise lines that include the value that Viking provides. And so many times, we're able to overcome that objection of the early payment by, the fact that the overall value that Viking provides kind of outweighs that. I will say that I think 22 months is just, in Joanne's defense, I do think that it's 22 months is an awfully long time. So, this is why we do encourage our guests to have more than one booking, so they're not stuck in that position of paying 22 months in advance. But it's something that I completely understand the frustration with. But those ships, they are really, really popular, the Egypt product. And so even with what's been going on in the world recently, we still see these sailings really, really well sold. So so Joanne, I understand your pain, and I wish there was something we could do with it, but their payment policy is pretty inflexible, unfortunately.
Yeah, and Stuart's checking in again and says, we are really looking forward to the Malta and Morocco and Mediterranean cruise in March. Have you gotten any feedback on the excursions they offer?
Well, it's funny you should ask that, Stuart, because this itinerary is so new. The first sailing of it, I think, departs in about 13 days. So I do anticipate we will have some feedback on the excursions that are offered and those ports that are not as common as some of the other itineraries. But yes, I do think we will have some feedback. Not yet, though, because the first sailing hasn't departed yet.
Wonderful. Yeah, I'm sure, what's great about the Viking Cruises group on Facebook that we have, you get the real-time feedback. People love to check in while they're on board. I know I've been looking at pictures of Paris and different things where you get to see it. It's not just in your mind's eye. You can actually see, it gets you excited, doesn't it, when you see some destination and it's better than you ever imagined.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And, of course, like Stuart's asking about the excursions, all of a sudden you'll see people and they're kind of sharing their journey and they're posting pictures, and you see them actually on excursions. You're like, oh, what are they doing? And hopefully they share it, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. So is there anything else? I see you looking at the comments there.
I'm just checking if we answered everybody's questions.
Did we miss anything?
No, I don't think so.
So,
but it's always a pleasure to do these live streams. We enjoy doing it. So Oh, we have another one.
Yeah.
Yes. So Mary Marinelli says that she avoids the paying very early because she always has a future trip on the books, which is what we mentioned earlier, Mary. I agree with you 100%. With minimal deposit, there is not much downside or much to lose. So I agree. So great point, Mary. Thank you.
Oh, so okay. Now I'm thinking outside the box here. So is what Mary is saying, or is what's being implied that if you put a deposit on, say, really far off trip that you may take, and then you have the one that like the Cairo one that's closer, does that change the payment on the Cairo one? And you could always cancel if something were to happen, the distant one?
You could, yes. I mean, you could do that, but we do like encourage. Like I would tell Joanne that she needs to go sooner than 2027, and we could book something else for her and do, and then put the books on, put the Egypt on the book for 2027. But maybe she could do the Rhine in 26 or, 25, something like that, and then we would be able to help her push back the final payment date. But Mary's point is well taken, and always something we encourage our guests to do, which is have another one on the books before they leave.
Wonderful. So are there such a thing as last minute specials? I know people talk about single supplements and a lot of I see more about single cruisers lately than I've ever seen before. And I'm sure you get asked about that a lot. Is there any kind of, I know it's a hard question, but what do you say to clients that call you and ask you, because your phone must ring off the hook, because I see it. There's whole groups now for these types of things.
I mean, look, traveling as a single is a real challenge in the cruise market, just because cruises base their margins on double occupancy. So if the guest is traveling as a single, they essentially end up paying, double. There are a few exceptions to that. There are cruise ships like Norwegian and Celebrity. The newest Celebrity ships have single cabins that are smaller cabins that are put in spaces that wouldn't necessarily be able to be used for full-size cabins. There are cruise lines that offer single cabins. There are river cruise lines that offer no single supplement on certain sailings on their lowest category cabins. But there are definitely limitations to what is offered for single guests. And the single guest is essentially paying for two most of the time. So it is a challenge constantly in our business to find something that would be reasonably priced for a single guest that without having to pay a single supplement. So, that's why I think you see so much of it. There's a lot of comments about it because, cruise lines, they're running a business. And so they're missing not just the revenue for the cabin as a single, but they're missing, like the mainstream lines or the lines that are not all inclusive are missing the revenue that's generated by that person on board. The money they spend at the bar, the money they spend at the casino, the money they spend at the spa, they're missing that revenue too. So the single supplement is something that I don't see, going away, unfortunately, but there are, places or lines that do offer low or no single supplement on certain sailings and certain categories of cabins. And we certainly can help people find those when they're looking for something.
Yeah.
And then I'll say like the tour companies, like for instance, Tauk, they have great single pricing for guests that want to go on a tour. I know the other day, like I just priced a safari for somebody, and the safari was $12,000 a person, double occupancy, $14,000 a person for a single. So that's not really that bad for that particular trip, right? Which, by the way, was 12 days, first class safari. So, yeah. So, there are options for sure.
That's great. And see, that's what I love about doing these live streams too, is it's all about options. And when you talk to someone that actually, like yourself, like I said, who would have thunk it? Because unless you ask and you talk to someone that knows, you will never know, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And Mary said, and book it with Michael. That last minute cruise here. So that Joanne. So if Joanne, let's just be hypothetical here today. If Joanne called you right now and say, okay, Michael, let's make it happen. And I've got some time, what is available on the Rhine? Is there any last minute specials on the Rhine or other cruises that are that we can do?
Yeah, we definitely have some free air specials for January, February, March with Treasures of the Rhine or Treasures of the Danube. These winter sailings that they are offering now on the rivers. there are definitely some great options that we could find somebody to book for 2025.
Wonderful. And David had a great question. He goes, and this is actually, people talk about this on the group sometimes too. If we book on board, can we transfer it to your company?
Yeah, I mean, look, guests can transfer their booking with Viking to an agent, even if they book direct, as long as it's within the past 60 days. They can transfer the booking to an agent. David, if you book on board, typically it will get booked under your agent that you booked with, unless you tell them otherwise. But yes, even if you book on board, it can be transferred to an agent, and it just has to be done so within 60 days of creation.
Is that pretty common? Because I know there's other lines. I mean, and there's huge benefits to that, right? Use it as onboard credits or something.
Yeah, I mean, we always have an onboard credit gift for our clients. But yeah, it varies by line, the limitations. Some cruise lines limit it to 14 days after creation, some 30 days. Vikings is 60 days.
Okay, wonderful. That's great. Well, we have covered a lot. I tell you what, this has been a great live stream, and thank you all for joining us. You've all made this extra special. I hope your Sunday afternoon is as bright as it is here, and you enjoy as winter's starting to show itself all around the country. And so we really appreciate taking the time. And I know we'll be planning the next live streams. We're even talking about doing some other special things. So keep a lookout. Please put that ring that bell, the notifications, so you get notified. We just send emails out. We post on the groups and everything like that. But we'd love for you to get the inside track to know when we've got something planned. And that's just by liking and subscribing and turn on notifications. Wow. Michael, any final words here? Any parting advice or anything?
No, I just want to thank everybody for the great questions. I always enjoy answering them, and and spending their Sunday afternoon with us. And I look forward to doing the next one.
Yeah. Well, thank you again for joining us, Michael, and everybody else. Have a great day. Till next time.
You too. Bye, John.
Bye-bye.
Bye.